Okay, Johnny, this one's got your number on it. Let's jam.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Minijam episode of Cinemajam, where we'll be talking about Send Help, the latest movie from Sam Raimi. And I'm going to tell you now, Sam Raimi is back. This movie puts him back on the genre that he really knows how to handle the best. As always, I'm Sebastian Gomez from Austin, Texas, and I'm excited to talk about this movie. Send Help is the latest movie from Sam Raimi, released in January 30 of 2026, starring Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien. To be honest, there are other people that have like small cameos, but Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien are basically 90% of the movie, so let's focus on them. The rest are just for a few minutes and are not really worth discussing. But it's an interesting movie because for those people that don't know a lot of Sam Raimi, I mean, he has done several superhero movies, so he's very well known for that. But I think you can tell in his passion is the horror genre, and especially those horror genres with a lot of comedy in them, like the Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, Drag Me to Hell is another good example. Those movies are very dark and they have a lot of, I mean, horror elements, but Sam Raimi has always been able to include a lot of dark comedy and some camp comedy that camp comedy you could also see it in his Spider-Man movies. He is the original creator of the 2000s Spider-Man movies, with Tobey Maguire. So a lot of people know him from that. And his last directed movie was, if I remember correctly, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. He's very active as a producer and as a TV producer as well, but he's you can tell that his heart is in horror, and because even Doctor Strange had a lot of horror elements, it was a good take on that franchise from Marvel. It had some pretty dark parts in it. So what takes this movie apart from other ones is that it also has a lot of elements of class warfare, and I think it's well done. I'm not going to deny that when I was watching the movie with my wife, actually, I was also reminded of Triangle of Sadness, a movie that came out, I think, in 2023, that had a very similar premise. You know, basically the story. I'm actually going to read the plot summary from IMDb. An employee and her insufferable boss become stranded on a deserted island, the only survivors of a plane crash. Here, they must overcome past grievances and work together to survive. Will they make it out alive? So, it doesn't tell us a lot about it, but basically, Rachel McAdams is Linda Liddle, and she is a very meek. I'm going to show a picture here of how she looks before the plane crash. She's a very meek, like employee, very smart, but you could tell that people, especially men, were always taking advantage of her. And Rachel McAdams, is very good at showing that. I mean, she's a very beautiful actress, but being able to portray such a weak character is very impressive in her case. And then we meet her boss, Dylan O'Brien, and a very, you could say a nepo baby. He has inherited, basically because his father died, he inherited the company where Linda works, and it's supposed to be like a big tech company. But he doesn't even really understand because he wasn't even working in the company. So he doesn't really understand what Linda does. He doesn't care about that. He basically is bringing his bros home to the company so that he can basically have fun and enjoy it. And in a decision of the moment, he decides to bring Linda to a flight because they have a problem in an acquisition in one Asian country. So he decides to bring her, but she's basically the only woman working, while the other guys are just goofing around in the plane. The plane crashes, and then we spent an hour and a half in the island, and completely deserted island where only Linda and Dylan survive. Dylan barely survives. Linda saves his life, but then we start to see that that class warfare starts to show up, where they are basically changing positions. And Dylan, his character is called Bradley Preston, is so obsessed of being a man and being in control and being the boss, and he cannot let go and let Linda be the boss in this case, when she is basically doing everything. She's hunting, she's fishing, she's building the shelter. She's a survivalist. She's always a survivalist. So this is a very human story. It's very different to many of Sam Raimi's movies. To be honest, I don't remember any movies from Sam Raimi where he didn't include any supernatural elements. In this one, you could say that the only supernatural element is that Linda is so good as survivalist that it doesn't make any sense. But then at the end, we find out that there was also some ways where she was basically cheating her survival in the island, and we find out that she wasn't that good of a survivalist at the end. So it was actually quite funny. And in the end, the conflict escalates into, several times actually. We are actually surprised how Linda lets Dylan survive so many times, how many chances she gives him. And Rachel McAdams is definitely bringing her A game. She's actually doing most of the heavy lifting in this movie. But Dylan O'Brien actually does a good job of being that, white boss type that he believes he's in control when he doesn't. In this case, it doesn't apply. His money doesn't count, basically. So it was a very good interpretation of both characters. I do believe it's worth it. The music was great. The tension that he was building, beautiful cinematography. The script, I think the script by the writers Damien Shannon and Mark Swift, it was pretty good. It has a lot of good dialogue, and the rhythm of the movie is actually pretty well paced. At the end, you do feel a lot that two people carrying a movie for such a long time is actually quite hard. And I was surprised that only at the end I was starting to feel like, okay, maybe we're spending too much in the island. It really went really fast in the end. I didn't felt like the hour and 53 minutes was that long, to be honest. I actually thought it was a little bit shorter when I checked my watch after watching the movie. I mentioned the music. Danny Elfman always do a great job. I'm not going to comment on that. The music was actually pretty good. The cinematographer was also Bill Pope. I think he worked in the past with Sam Raimi, so he knows how to work with him. So he's actually, and he's a very well-known photographer. I mean, he did The Matrix as well, and did the Spider-Man movies, and he's actually a very good cinematographer. There is actually no comment on that regard. It was well shot. It was very impressive. It had a lot of, some of the latest movies I have seen, they are too bright. Basically, they're letting you see everything in the screen. I didn't feel like this one was overcast, so I really like this one a lot. I hope everyone can see it. I mean, for the projections of the weekend, it seems that it's going to be doing well during the box office, but January is kind of like a mixed bag. Sometimes they dump movies that are bad in January, but I think this one was well worth it, and I was really happy to go watch it with my wife, and it is actually worth watching. If anyone want to watch Triangle of Sadness, that one is available in Hulu, and it's also worth watching, but it's less of a horror movie. That one is more like a drama. This one it has a lot of horror elements and surprises, but I think everyone will enjoy it. It's not really that scary, to be honest. It's more on the thriller side of things. It does have some, blood and all that, but it's you can tell. I mean, is that campy comedy that I was mentioning about? Sam Raimi loves to wash his characters in blood. If you have watched Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2, you know that's pretty common in his movies, and he does that basically. This the blood that she's showing here right now is basically she was hunting, and it was it was actually quite surprising when she was like basically uh, wash in blood from her hunt. Uh, I hope everyone enjoys. I think it's worth spending some time in the cinema. This is a good movie to concentrate and don't get distracted. You will actually get a lot of it. And as I mentioned, the acting of Rachel McAdams, I think is worth it. It actually reminds me a little bit of Kathy Bates in Misery. That she starts very calm, very subdued, but then she starts to develop a very strong personality and doesn't want to anyone let go. Actually, this movie has a lot of themes with that movie, Misery. Two people stranded in a place where actually one of them, the male character is actually normally a very strong and very bossy person, and when he cannot move because he is hurt, depends on the woman, and the woman starts defining, okay, what are you bringing to this relationship? And you could tell that basically probably the writers were very inspired by Misery. I hope everyone enjoys it, and leave me your comments. Please subscribe, review the podcast. That help us find new people. And until next time, keep jamming about movies.